Hey. So, as I always start this off with, you already know what this is about, as you saw the title. It's going to be about the Star Wars movies. Obviously, there's been a lot of debate in the Star Wars community that the sequels sucked, and I strongly agree. I've actually been thinking this for a while, though, before this really was a thing. I should have started talking about it back then, because then I'd be the pioneer instead of looking like I'm just a follower. But I've been thinking this way before it was a thing. Like, I thought I was misinterpreting the movies or something, because nobody else was hating on them, and it was just me. And then it started to slowly catch up, and now it's just a thing. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk about the movies and why they suck, and especially why they suck in comparison to the movies before it. So, for starters, the previous set of movies that everyone hated on was the prequels. Well, personally, I liked the prequels. I liked them for a bunch of reasons. One is because I like Star Wars for the Force and lightsabers and Jedi and Sith and all that. And that's what the prequels are loaded with. The original trilogy doesn't really have that. You get Luke, who works his way up to becoming a Jedi, and then you have old Ben, who's a retired Jedi, basically, and you have Vader. But other than that, there's not really much in terms of that. There's, especially in the first one, there's a lightsaber battle, but it's super terrible. There's reasons for that. I mean, it was 70s, and there's no CGI, really, so it was hard to really animate the lightsabers to look like lightsabers, because obviously the actors were just fighting with sticks, and and then in post-production they had to put the glow on the sticks and blah blah blah. And I saw a documentary about how difficult it was. Like, they'd put the glow on, and then after, as the people moved, the glow like fell off. And so anyways, that's kind of boring. And then, and then what else? Basically the original trilogy is more about rebels, if anything, which rebels are just people. There's nothing special about them. They're just people. They have guns. So that's why I didn't really take to them. Granted, I'm not saying the original trilogy are terrible movies. They're not. One, they started this whole frenzy that everyone has for Star Wars. And two, as far as as far as the movies go, they tell a pretty solid story that logically flows together and just works. But anyhow, I think the other reason why I'm probably more partial to the original trilogy as well is because that came out when I was a kid. I mean, 99, I was 11, and that's when Phantom Menace came out. So there's probably that as well. So, like, obviously the older generation is going to prefer the original trilogy because that's when they were kids / younger. But then, like, my generation is going to prefer, or possibly is going to prefer, the prequel trilogy. And then you got the generation nowadays, which will prefer this crappy sequel trilogy because, that's what they came up with. But anyways, there's a lot that these movies did that the sequel trilogies didn't do. So for starters, you were introduced to characters. And like in the original trilogy, you were introduced to characters. And you got to see their progression. And whenever a new character was added, it made sense. And it was integral to the story. It wasn't just kind of like a random additional character. Like, you first see Luke on Tatooine, and then he gets discovered by old Ben, and then it's like, oh, you got some kind of ability, and you knew my dad, and then he goes and starts getting actually no, he does the thing in the Death Star, because he's tapping into the Force. He doesn't realize it yet, but he is, because he's thinking about what old Ben told him. Then in Empire Strikes Back, he starts getting trained. Now he's becoming a Jedi. Then in Return of the Jedi, he's a full-on Jedi. Somehow. Yoda died, so I don't really know how he got trained more. The best he can do is train himself with what he knew, so I don't know. But still, there was a progression. And you get introduced to Han, and Han ends up mattering, and you care about Han. You care about Leia. You care about Lando when you get introduced to him. You care about Chewie. You care about all these characters. And they're almost cool, like the toys. You would have wanted to have all the toys. You don't want just the Luke toys. You want the Han toys too, and you want the Chewie toys and masks for Halloween and all that. And then going backwards, the prequel trilogy, I think, did a really good job at giving Vader a backstory. I mean, they had to go backwards for that. Like, you already had Vader as a character, and now you had to make up his whole entire what he was and what he became. And like, I feel like that actually was really good. You started with him as a kid and how he got discovered, why the Jedi ended up on was he on Tatooine? Yeah. Why they even ended up on Tatooine in the first place and how he got discovered. Yeah, there's some weird loopholes, like how he doesn't have a dad and his mom just randomly got pregnant by the Force, and you know, his midichlorian count there's off the charts and there's really no reason for it. So yeah, there's that crap that's not answered, but for the most part, they made a solid story, and they showed like his growth, and they showed how, you know, in the second one, how he's starting to have conflict because Padme, he, you know, that becomes his woman, and like he loves her, but the Jedi Order doesn't want, you know, you can't have relationships, and then he's like, oh, conflicted, so he's trying to sneak around on the side to be with her, but at the same time honor his Jedi code. So it's starting to show a conflict. Then when you have Return of the Jedi, I mean, what the heck, Revenge of the Sith, what why can't I talk right now? Revenge of the Sith, that's when he ends up, you know, you see why he switches. He doesn't even really switch to the dark side because he wants to be dark either. He did it just out of love for his wife. He knew that she was going to die, and he was told by Palpatine that Palpatine knew secrets on how to save people, so he's like, okay, I'll do this just to save her. It wasn't even so much that he didn't like the Jedi, he just wanted to save his wife. And so he did what he had to do to get into Palpatine's good graces, and ended up being too little too late though. Plus, Palpatine probably never really had any plans to help him out because he's always just scheming. But, yeah, then he ended up with nobody because he fights his former master, who's obviously going to be better than him. And he ended up besting him, so now he's kind of stuck with the Empire because, well, one, the Jedi aren't going to take him back after everything he did, and now he's got this robotic body that Palpatine made for him, so he's kind of stuck. And that's why at the end of Return of the Jedi, that's why he's able to convert back to the light side and save Luke, because he wasn't fully bad anyways. He never really was bad. You know, he just basically did what he had to do, or at least what he thought he had to do. But yeah, it worked. And again, you even cared about those characters. Even Qui-Gon you somehow cared about. Qui-Gon's only in the first movie for maybe half the length of the movie. But even when he gets killed by Maul, you're like, oh man, that sucks. It'd be cool if he was at least in the next movie too. You know, like, you care about them. You're even kind of invested in Count Dooku. You know, like, not so much because it's like, oh, he's the bad guy. Ugh. But at the same time, though, you do kind of feel like, you know, you feel a little something like, oh, man, he's dead now. You know, he was kind of integral. Like, you kind of feel a little, you know, not super strong, but a little bit. And, like, even at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you know the whole point is Anakin's supposed to turn into Vader. That's the whole point of the whole movies. You knew right from the Phantom Menace that the story was about Darth Vader as a kid. So you know how it ends up. But even when you see it happen, when he goes and he's fighting against Obi-Wan and he ends up becoming Vader, you still just feel sad, like, no, why did you do that? Why did it end up like this? No. Even though it has to. You know, it's not an original story. It's building backwards from a story that already exists. But, you know, it's just because you ended up caring about those characters. And, yeah, so basically, I bring all that up because in the sequel trilogy, there's really none of that. You don't really care about any of the characters. Like, for example, Finn and Poe are, I don't want to say they're throwaway characters, but for a lack of a better word, they're almost like throwaway characters. It's like, if they got killed for whatever reason, it wouldn't have really mattered. You'd been like, oh, I guess there's no more Finn. Oh, I guess there's no more Poe. You know what I mean? You wouldn't really be affected. You'd just be like, okay, I guess they're not in the movies anymore. Like, say in Last Jedi, one of them got killed. You'd be like, oh, okay, I guess they're not going to be in the next one. Whatever. Like, you actually felt worse about, what was her name? Leia. Dang it, what's her name in real life? Well, when she passed away in real life, you actually felt like, oh man, because you knew that she wasn't really going to be able to be in the movies as Leia. And versus, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't care about Poe and Finn. And then, geez, I'm having all kinds of weird indigestion right now. I can't even talk. Ah! Anyways. And then even Rey, though. It's like, she's like she's the main character, and she's almost like a throwaway character as well. It's like, during the whole time, I thought something would end up happening where either Kylo would get her to convert to the dark side, or maybe she'd get killed or something. And I always thought if it did happen, it just wasn't really going to matter. You don't really care enough. It's like, okay, Rey's dead. Like, there's really no backstory. She's just some random scavenger that just happened to run into Finn, who also happened to run into Poe. They just happened to run into each other. And then because they happen to run into each other, they just kind of stick together for whatever reason. Like, as opposed to, like, the original trilogy, you know, yeah, you kind of happened to run into Han, but there was a purpose. They needed Han to fly a ship for them. He was on a job. He wasn't just like, oh, tag along. He was on a job at first. And, you know, old Ben was helping Luke because basically he was his secret protector all along. We obviously find that out at the end of Revenge of the Sith, that Obi-Wan went to Tatooine to kind of look over Luke. So there's a purpose why they're connected. It's not like, oh, they just run into each other and now they're friends. Oh, they're going to make up an organization together. They're going to call it Resistance. Actually, that's not the case. Resistance was a thing, I guess. But still, you didn't hear about it until they started talking about it. And even though there's more of them, for some reason, we're only focusing on those three. Like, I know, the original trilogy, the Rebels, we only focused on them. But again, there was a purpose why we were focusing on those ones. It almost just feels like Poe, Finn, and Rey were just like, boom, here you go, here's some characters. But anyways, yeah, so you didn't really care about them. And then the other problem, too, is there's a lot of missed opportunities with those movies. Like, for example, Finn is a stormtrooper that defected. That was like, man, this isn't right. I don't want to just kill these citizens just because, you know, I'm ordered to. It's not right. So he defected, and then seemed like he had some kind of force sensitivity because he was able to wield the lightsaber and kind of not really go toe-to-toe versus Kylo, but the scratch on Kylo's face from a lightsaber, that was because of Finn, if I recall, right? Haven't really watched Force Awakens in a while, so I don't remember too strongly, but I'm pretty sure that was from him, right? So, like, he showed some potential. Kylo's obviously well-trained in the Force and knows how to use a lightsaber and stuff, and you get this guy who's never even seen a lightsaber before picking it up, and he's able to kind of hold his own. So there was potential, and people are speculating, you know, maybe the Force Awakens meant Finn, not Rey. Everyone, you know, on the surface you think Rey, or it awakened, Rey, but it was like, no, Rey was obvious. We knew that Rey was going to be Force sensitive before we even went to the theater. We didn't know Poe was going to be. Finn was going to be, so that was the idea that started to circulate. Kind of like Phantom Menace. Yeah, you thought it was Darth Maul, but it's like, no, it's not Darth Maul. We saw him in the trailers. We knew Darth Maul was in the movie and that he was going to be the main bad guy. And the Phantom Menace really was Palpatine. He was the one behind the scenes doing everything, both as Emperor Palpatine and Chancellor. Light side and dark side. Although I guess he was always dark side. He was just pretending to be light side, huh? But still, that's who the true Phantom Menace was, but you didn't realize at first. You just thought Maul. So that's what everyone was thinking on this one. Like, oh, it's... After they saw it, it was like, no, The Force Awakens and Poe. Or it was, oh, maybe the movie just means both of them, but they didn't want to give Poe... why do I keep saying Poe? Finn! But they didn't want to give Finn away. Then, they also had wasted potential with Poe as well, because Poe was supposed to be, you know, seen as like this super great pilot and yada, yada, yada. And there was potential there. And like, they just never really did anything with him. I mean, by the time Rise of Skywalker comes around, they're having him be kind of mediocre. And like, everyone's complaining about his flying skills. And like, he's turned into Rey. Like, oh, well, it's not my fault she's not here. Like, everyone's looking for Rey to do it. And it's like, what? Why is she supposed to be the golden child now? When it comes to flying, that was supposed to be Poe's thing. He's supposed to be a great pilot. You don't need Rey if you have Poe. And then, like, I don't know. And then, like, everybody's story arc just ended up all over the place. One thing that I think really damaged that was switching directors halfway through. Or 2/3 of the way through. Like, you had JJ do the first one. He came up with ideas, he made a story, and blah, blah, blah. Then, you had Rian Johnson, who was like, no, I want to go this way, do it my own way. And he kind of just disregarded stuff, threw stuff out. Like, Kylo's mask, that was definitive of him. The whole purpose of that was because he wore that because Vader, his grandpa, his idol, he wore a mask. So that's why Kylo wanted the mask. Oh, well, Rian comes along and, you don't need a mask. We're just going to destroy this. Yeah, you don't even need a shirt anymore. And then, like, what else was kind of nonsensical that Rian ended up doing? Oh, yeah, he made, like, a terrible story, too. Last Jedi was horrible. It's like they introduced all these pointless characters, like Rose. What's the point of Rose? And then they introduced, what was his name? DJ, the stuttering guy that helped them, the code breaker. Like, if anything, what they could have done at least was combine them two. If they wanted to have Rose, then make it so that Rose was also the code breaker. Now she has a purpose. She's not just some random character that happened to stop Finn from trying to escape. And, like, that's the other thing, too. They have Finn trying to escape. So we went from a defecting stormtrooper who's helping the resistance to somebody who wants no part in it now, and he's just trying to escape, and, I'm a little baby. And, like, then they go to that stupid casino aisle, which, what was the point of that? That was just filler. There was no point in that. That was stupid. And then, again, Rey somehow is gaining all these powers. She's not been trained. Luke's being super resistant to training her. She hasn't been trained very much. But yeah, at the end of the movie, she knows how to move the rocks with the Force and blah, blah, blah. And she's, almost next level. And then when Rise of Skywalker comes around, she is next level. And all of a sudden, now she's got all these Force powers that you never even seen Kylo or anybody else have. Like the Force Heal. Or, what was the other one that she had? I thought she had one other Force power that was like, oh, okay, yeah, you have it. Makes sense. But definitely the Force Heal. No one else had that ever before, and all of a sudden she does. Oh, but then you see that Leia was training her. Leia, who all along never had Force power, Force sensitivity, nothing like that. Now all of a sudden she's a Force-sensitive user. She secretly had a lightsaber. She trained with Luke, and now she trained Rey. And somehow she must have been a super good Jedi because of what she was able to teach Rey. Possibly even better than her brother. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, this makes sense. Just throw that in there. And then at the end of the movies, too, like, they make it so Rey's, like, all-powerful on everything. Oh, yeah, you can take Palpatine on. One of the most manipulative, powerful Sith/Empire/Force users/beings/everything. But, oh, yeah, you can take him on now. Makes sense. Yeah, you can kill him. Makes sense. Because that's how the story was written for you. Okay. And, like, she was somehow even able to convince Kylo to convert to become Ben again. It's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, makes sense. And again, like, then they introduced more characters that you don't care about. Like, okay, they had Lando come back in the last one. Well, that's kind of weird that they waited until the last one, but at least Lando was a character you knew about and cared about. Granted, it was kind of weird, though. They just run into him on that planet, and it was like, oh, okay, he's just here. Makes sense. Well, no, they tried to explain it with, oh, Leia sent me a message or whatever, blah, blah. And then he's saying, send her my love, though. And it's like, well, if you were just talking to her, why couldn't you have when you were talking to her? But anyway, then they introduced that other crew of deflected, whatever the word is, stormtroopers. That girl, I don't even know her name. All I know is she hangs out with Finn a lot because they're both defected stormtroopers. And again, she's like a pointless character. They just added. There's no purpose to her. You don't even know her name. I don't know her name. I don't even know how... I couldn't even tell you how long she was really in the movie for. She was really in the movie for what? Towards the end, I guess? Last hour, maybe? Last half hour? Like, what's the point of introducing a character at that point? Same as Zori Bliss. The girl that was in the outfit that basically must have been Poe's ex-girlfriend or something. That was pointless. What'd you introduce her for? Just make up a new character just because she was in the movie literally for like 15 minutes. What's the point of that? Like I said, at least in the other movies, every time a new character was introduced, it had meaning. They mattered. They were part of the story. You know, yeah, Lando didn't show up until Empire Strikes Back, but he was in the movie the whole time. He was in Return of the Jedi. Like, he mattered. I mean, he even came back in Rise of Skywalker for a bit. He wasn't just in the movie for 5 minutes like Zori Bliss or the other defected stormtroopers. And then, like, I don't know. And then, like, the storylines just sucked, too. Like, when Force Awakens came out, that was actually a really good movie. So, for me, I was a Star Wars fan. And, you know, I graduated high school. So, I graduated high school, like, a year after Revenge of the Sith came out. And then there was no movies. And, yeah, they had the TV shows. They had the Clone Wars, and that might have been it. But I didn't have Disney, and I was going to be 18, 19, 20. Like, I was going to college now, and I was working full-time. I didn't have time for cartoons. So I didn't watch that. I mean, I've been catching up on it now with Disney Plus, but I didn't have time for it then. And so I kind of just lost interest in Star Wars. It was like, man, this is a thing I used to like, but I don't really care anymore. And then Force Awakens came out. And what happened was I came out on Christmas Day, 2015. And we were at my mom's house, or my parents' house, and we weren't really doing much. My mom was like, man, we should go do something. This is boring. And we're watching TV, and there was a commercial for Star Wars, and she said, maybe we can go see that. And for me, I was like, I don't know. I used to like Star Wars, but I don't care anymore. But I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll go to the theaters with them, and I'll see what else they have. If they have something else cooler, maybe I'll go see that instead, and they can all go see Star Wars. Or maybe my mom would go see Star Wars with, you know, someone else in our group, and maybe me and my dad and one of the others in our group would go see a different movie or something. Well, we got to the theaters, and there was nothing else. So it was like, okay, I guess it's Star Wars or nothing. Well, I'm not going to sit in the parking lot for 2 hours. That's stupid. So I saw Star Wars. And after leaving the theater, I was like, holy crap, that was an awesome movie. And I was a Star Wars fan again. It was cool. Like, Kylo was cool. His mask. I thought how he looked was kind of goofy. Like, he takes his mask off, and it's like he's almost like a cutesy emo or something with his fluffy hair and stuff. And it's like, wait, what? This is Kylo? I was hoping for something a little more rugged, like Jason Statham to come out or something. Not this pretty boy. Like, what the heck? But still, like, the mask was cool. His lightsaber was super cool. His force powers was cool. Like, when he could freeze people and do his mind reading thing, or I don't even know how the mind reading thing worked. Was that just inflicting pain using the force, and people would just talk just so he would stop? Or was that him actually using the force to read their minds? I don't know. But that was cool. And like how he stopped the blaster beam from Poe, and then it almost seemed like he wasn't thinking about it, but he was making it stay there. And then after, when he starts walking away to go back to his ship, he lets it go. And it was like, what? That's a cool ability you never saw before. And like, it was just cool. And there was almost a structure to that movie. Yeah, the characters were kind of ragtag how they were together, but there was a focus. It was Kylo just trying to get a map. He wanted the BB unit, which originally was with Poe. It ended up finding its way with Rey. So now he wanted to go after Rey because she had the BB unit, but then BB was gone or something. But then he realized Rey could be an asset. I don't remember offhand why, but, you know, there was a purpose. And then it was just like, oh, man. Then she gets to the island with Luke, and it was like, oh, man, this next movie's going to be sick. Because at that point, Luke is Grandmaster status. So it was like, oh, man, this movie's going to be awesome when it comes out. And I was pumped about Last Jedi. And then it came out, and it was just like, what? Like, they totally destroyed what that movie should have been. I thought it was going to be sick. Like, I thought it was going to be something like, you know, Grandmaster Luke and Rey were going to go up against, like, Kylo and Snoke. And I thought there was going to be a part where, like, Snoke was just destroying them. And, like, he had Rey laid out, maybe almost dead. And then it was, like, Kylo and Snoke versus Luke. And then maybe Kylo was, you know, because in the first one you saw he had a lot of conflict between staying with the dark side and going back to the light side. So I thought there might be a part where, like, he's seeing Snoke beating on Luke, and he's like, man, Luke's my uncle. Ugh. And then he defects, and he helps Luke, and they fight against Snoke, and he kills Snoke, and now Kylo is Ben again. And yeah, I thought, well, that'd be weird because it's only the second movie, so what's going to happen in the third movie if they make Kylo turn good? He's supposed to be like the main baddie, but I was like, you know what, it would be different though, and that would be kind of cool. Plus you'd get to see Luke, like Grandmaster Luke. I thought, man, he'd probably have some sick stuff he can do. Awesome force powers, awesome lightsaber skills, awesome everything. In my head, Last Jedi was going to be super awesome, and then what did we get? A piece of trash. They put Luke in the movie, and it was almost like they didn't even want him there. They make him so that he has no interest in the Force, no interest in his lightsaber, no interest in anything. He wants to burn down the Jedi scrolls. He doesn't want to train Rey. He wants to be a recluse on his island. And it was just like, this is what you're going to do with Luke? He's supposed to be the greatest character in all of Star Wars lore. You have him now at Grandmaster status, and this is what you're doing with him. You're just wasting him. And then they basically just kill him. They do nothing with him, and then they kill him with his stupid force projection. And it was like, wow. Okay, cool. Even that was disappointing. Like, I thought, when I saw the force projection, I thought, okay, this movie sucked the whole time. But I was like, maybe this will be cool. Maybe this will be like a battle where even though he's a force projection, he has such a mastery of the Force that he can, be physical, you know what I mean? He can actually have a lightsaber battle, and it's almost like he's there, but he's not. Nope. He just straight up was a ghost, just hanging out. He's getting shot at with those, Kylo's ships and not taking any damage because he's not really there. He can't fight because he's not really there, and it was just like, man, this is stupid. What a waste. And then even the other part that could have been cool, when Finn was flying his ship thing into the blaster, first order, big gun thing, and then Rose comes out of nowhere to hit him and save him, and it was like, what the heck? That's stupid too. And that's what it also leads into. They make all these weird budding romances that go nowhere. Rose was into Finn, but that never really went anywhere. Finn was always supposed to be in love with Rey, but that never went anywhere. Rey and Kylo apparently love each other, and it didn't really go anywhere until the last one, and they kissed. And even then, that wasn't really like a love kiss. It was almost like a thank you. Like Rey was like, oh my God, I did it. I made you turn into the light side. And he was like, thanks, babe, for helping me figure out what I want to be. It wasn't like, hey, baby, I love you. And then, they left so many things open, too, like Snoke. You didn't get any kind of story on Snoke. Yeah, at the end, I made Snoke. Oh, cool. That's the whole story we get with Snoke. He's the main baddie in the first one, and that's the story we get. Oh, okay. Palpatine made him. Sweet. Cool story. And then, there's all the time, all this stuff with Finn, like in the last one, Rise of Skywalker. Rey, I never told you! And then he gets buried in that pit, and then they keep bringing it up. What were you going to tell Rey? Oh, nothing. And they never say it. What's the point of that? Why are you making weird cliffhangers for? That's stupid. And then, what else was terrible? Maz. What was her name? Is it just Maz? I don't know. The woman with the weird eyes, though. How she had the lightsaber. That's a story for another time. Oh, cool. Great explanation. So you never get the story for why she has the lightsaber. How she ended up with it. I mean, at the end of the day, that lightsaber was Luke's, which, how did he lose it? Oh, he lost it when he was fighting Vader, right? So it fell down that shaft. Someone got it somewhere along the way, and then somehow Maz got it. But nope, don't tell a good story. Just say, it's a long story for another time. Oh, okay, cool. Nice scapegoat. That's crap. And then all along, too, it was, who's Rey's parents? Oh, who's Rey's parents? Who's Rey's parents? Oh, who is she? And then people were speculating something cool, at least. Oh, maybe she's a Kenobi. Oh, maybe she's, what was the other ones that you heard? Oh, maybe she was Luke's kid. Nope. Oh, she's a Palpatine's granddaughter. Cool. And which Palpatine? Is she the clone Palpatine's granddaughter? Or is she the real Palpatine's granddaughter? And it's just like, oh, that's cool. You made her, okay, yeah, so she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Palpatine is a central character throughout all the movies, but it's at the end of the day, You still don't know who her parents are. Her dad's a nobody. You don't know who Palpatine's son is. Right? That's who it was supposed to be. Or is it Palpatine's daughter was her mom? I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be the son was her dad. But you don't know who he is. So it's kind of like, oh, cool explanation. And then, it's just stupid. Because then they have, Rise of Skywalker. So, Rey at the end just decides, yeah, I'm Rey Palpatine, but I'll just go with Rey Skywalker. Like, what? That was so stupid. I actually heard somebody's theory once, recently, and they said if they could rewrite Rise of Skywalker, how it would go would be Kylo, basically Rey and Kylo would switch. Kylo would end up giving into the light, and he would become Ben Solo again. And Rey, when she found out Palpatine was her grandpa, would give in to him and become Empress Palpatine. And basically then it would be Ben versus Empress, in which case obviously Ben would win, hence the Rise of Skywalker. Granted, his name's Ben Solo, but his mom is Leia, and like it would be cool. It would work. Like the first, you know what I mean? It would be about all the main characters of the Skywalker line. The prequels are about Anakin before he was Vader. Then the original trilogy would be more or less about Luke, and then the sequel trilogy would be about Ben, which is in relation to Leia. So you'd get the father and the kids. There's not really going to be a story about Padme because she died giving birth to them. So it's like it ties up all the loose ends that way, And, it would have been awesome. Plus, Leia was in all the movies, so that would be her tie-in as well. So that then these sequel movies could be tied to her. Because not only is it because of her son, but it's because of her actually being in them, And her being more of the central focal point of the movies like Luke kind of was in the original trilogy. I mean, Leia was in them too, but it was always supposed to be about Luke. And like, I heard that and I was like, oh man, that would have been so much cooler. And at least Rise of Skywalker would work then. It really would be the Rise of Skywalker. It would be, like I said, Ben is a Solo, but at the same time, he's a Skywalker because his mom is a Skywalker. And that would have been cool. Nope, instead they just do some crap with Rey and make her take on the name. Oh, I'm Rey Skywalker. No, you're not. Shut up. You're a Mary Sue that somehow is an expert at all the Jedi arts and lightsaber battles and Force use and blah, 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 blah. And now you're going to steal someone else's last name because you think it sounds better than yours? Like, deal with it. Just either, A, keep calling yourself Rey, just Rey, or suck it up and say, I'm Rey Palpatine. I know, I got a crappy last name, but I'm nothing like my grandpa. Like, don't steal someone else's last name. I mean, I guess in real life it doesn't matter, because I'm sure, like, the Hitler family doesn't admit that they're the Hitler family. They've probably changed their last names. But in the context of the movie, it's different. You're like, come on, that's cheap. That's stupid. I don't know. And then again, like I said, you still don't really care about the characters. Anything could have happened to Finn, Poe. Even, I think at the end of the day, out of the light side characters, the character that everybody probably cared the most about was BB-8. If something happened to BB-8, people probably would have actually been upset. Something happened to Finn, Poe, or Rey, you'd be like, whatever. There's still other characters in the movie. But BB-8, you'd be like, oh man, BB-8 broke down, or, whatever happened to him. And then the worst part, too, possibly, which really shows how the sequel trilogy movies suck, is because you care more about characters from previous movies than you care about these new ones. It was cool to hear that Luke was going to be in Last Jedi. It was kind of cool to have Han and Chewie show up in Force Awakens. And again, you felt like, no, when they killed Han, because you're like, no, now Han's just done. There's no more Han. Oh, man. And it was cool to have Leia in the movies. And it was cool when 3PO was kind of, especially in the last one, he was a central character again. And then R2 comes back. Even it was kind of cool to see Lando. And you're like, oh, cool. But you didn't really feel anything for these new characters. They're just there. They're just there. And then, also, they're always fighting. Poe and Finn are always kind of bickering because Poe is always kind of cranky and whiny, and it's never how it was in any other movies. Everybody that was a team was a team. The only one that was kind of cranky before was Anakin, But the whole point was because, Anakin's supposed to turn to the dark side, so of course there's supposed to be conflict, so that's why they made him a little cranky. It made sense. It worked with his character arc. But, yeah, then what else? Yeah, that's the thing, too, switching directors. So, JJ started out with the movies going good. Then Rian comes along, completely destroys them. I don't know how to say his name. Is it Ryan? He just spells it weird, or is it Rian? I don't know. But just completely destroys them. Makes the movies suck. And then it's like JJ comes back and you're like, all right, cool. So now JJ can fix this. But that's exactly what JJ has to do. He has to fix it all. Every stupid thing that Rian did, JJ has to go back on. So now Kylo needs to rebuild his mask. So that then he can have his mask back. And what else did JJ have to fix because of Rian destroying it? I don't know, but there really was like a lot of backtracking. The Knights of Ren, they kind of just randomly show up because I think JJ wanted the Knights of Ren to be characters, but Rian didn't even introduce them in Last Jedi. So now JJ had to kind of just force them in there, like, oh, here they are. Kind of pointlessly, but at least they made it. Same as the backstory for Snoke. Oh, well, Rian didn't take advantage of the opportunity, so now I gotta make up a quick, stupid backstory. Palpatine made him. Oh, I gotta make Palpatine come back now, actually, just so I can have something kind of cool. Well, we'll just say he's a clone. Like, it was just all kinds of stupidity. And then it's like over the top. So not only did he have to backtrack all the crap Rian ruined, but then he has to go over the top just to make it awesome, to make up for how crappy Last Jedi was and how boring it was. So, yeah, you just ended up with like as they say, a hot mess for the movies. Just so much potential wasted. Force Awakens was awesome. There was potential. And like those cool Force abilities that you saw too, you never saw them again. Kylo never was reading people's minds anymore. Kylo was never freezing people in their tracks or freezing blasters in their tracks or whatever. Nope. Just in that movie. And then, what else? I don't know. They were just very disappointing. And it's just kind of bad, too, when you can, like, go on YouTube and, like, fan-made movies are so much better than the actual canon movies. It's like, how does a movie with $1 billion budget suck, but this person who had maybe $17,000 made an awesome short film? Oh, that's right, because they're an actual fan and they care and they understand the backstory because they actually read it all and they know what they're doing and, like, Oh, that's the other thing I was thinking about, too. Rise of Skywalker basically is Return of the Jedi, like, tit for tat, basically. They end up going to some weird planet where there's strange characters living there doing their festival things. Well, what happens in Return of the Jedi? They go to Endor, which has Ewoks, which are strange characters, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, what else was in there? That's also kind of where Empire was defeated. And that's also where the First Order is basically defeated. Well, I guess it's technically the Final Order at that point. But those movies just mirror each other so much. It's ridiculous. To a certain degree, though, Force Awakens mirrored the original Star Wars to a degree as well. It started out with Rey being like a scavenger, just a nobody, kind of like Luke. And then all of a sudden she becomes somebody, just like Luke. Difference is at least Luke's story made more sense. There was more thought put into it. Rey's just kind of like, yeah, we'll just make her be super good just because we need her to be. That's the whole point of her character. She's just a Mary Sue, which is dumb. Luke, to a certain degree, is whatever a male version of a Mary Sue is, but at least it's not as dumb. You saw some of his training with Hermit Yoda, and that's really it. But you also know he had the Force ghost of Obi-Wan hanging out with him. So at least there was that. Rey, all you saw was Luke being like, nah, I'm not going to help you. And then he does help her, and he puts in, like, very little effort. And then Rise of Skywalker comes, and it's like, oh, Leia's been training you all along. Okay, that makes sense. Like, I don't know. The sequel trilogy movies just sucked. They were very disappointing. Granted, they didn't all suck. Force Awakens is good, and Rise of Skywalker is kind of good. It's just there's too many plot holes, too many over-the-top stupidities. Like I said, with Rey being a Mary Sue, it's just ridiculous. But I mean, it's entertaining. The worst one by far, easily, is Last Jedi. That's just so terrible. I mean, I heard there was even petitions to remake it, and unfortunately it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen now. But it is a terrible movie. And overall, though, that trilogy just sucks. Just sucks. Between the lack of character development, lack of you actually caring about those characters because they're not developed, lack of logical storyline that makes any kind of sense, lack of effort, really. So it's kind of funny though, because like before it used to be original trilogy fans and prequel trilogy fans, and like prequel trilogy was hated on. Oh, that's so crappy. Ugh. And now it's like the original trilogy fans and the prequel trilogy fans have united to hate on the sequel trilogy. Oh, that's the other thing too I wanted to pop in there though. I wanted to say about the Han Solo movie and Rogue One. So Rogue One, I have to say, is actually a really good movie. It's definitely like a 9 out of 10, which I find weird because, like I said, I like Star Wars for Jedi, Sith, lightsabers, force power, yada, yada, yada. And there's none of that in Rogue One. It's all about the rebels, basically. But there's just something about it. It's such a good movie. And then my question with Solo is, so Solo's not as good as Rogue One by a long shot. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It's all right. It's something to watch. I've watched it multiple times, but it's not as engaging. Like Rogue One, I watched with excitement. Like, oh, it's a good movie. I'm going to put this on today. Han Solo, a lot of times, is just like background noise. Like, man, it's okay. I don't mind listening to this today. But one thing I always think is, what's the time frame supposed to be on Han Solo movie? Like, I get it, he's supposed to be younger, but like, how much younger? Because he's not old when they meet up with him in the original trilogy. Yeah, like Luke's supposed to be about, 18, 19 years old, somewhere around there. And Han's probably 30 to 35, somewhere in that window. So, like, the Han Solo movie, how old is he supposed to be? Is he like Luke's age? Is he supposed to be 20 during that movie? Or what's the time frame on that? I don't know. And then, like, because, like, Chewie, he meets Chewie in that movie as well. And, like, how long are they friends then by the time he meets Luke? I feel like at that point they've been friends forever, but apparently they've only been friends for a few years. And then you got to think this too. When the movie starts, if he was the Star Wars movie, when the movie starts, if he was 20 then, he becomes an Empire. He's in the Empire as a pilot for a little bit. How long was that? That window, was that 3 years or 5 years? So now he's up to like 25. Say. So, see, he's catching up to when he saw Luke. And it's like, okay, but he looks different. He's still a little bit younger looking than Harrison Ford. Like, it's not catching up looks-wise, but it's supposed to be catching up age-wise. And I don't know. Even at the very end, he says, I'm going to Tatooine. I heard there's this gangster. I don't know. It's a reference to him working for Jabba. And didn't he basically just do the job for Jabba before the original movie? New Hope. Isn't it supposed to be like a new debt that he has, and that's why he wants to do this smuggling job with them so he can get some money to pay back Jabba? So it's like, what is the time frame on that? And that's the thing too. Like, they talk about there's the potential that they could make a Han Solo 2. I don't think they're going to, but there was like potential that they could have. And it's like, how old is Han supposed to be then when we first see him? Is he not 35? Is he like 50 or something? Like, how do you have this much content that you can fit in between when we first meet him in A New Hope and anything before that? I don't know. It's one thing I've been wondering since the very first time I saw that movie. Like, how old is this Han supposed to be? How old is the Han in New Hope supposed to be? Like, I'm pretty sure Harrison Ford, as himself, during those days was 35 or so. So, was Han supposed to be that old? Was Han supposed to be younger? Like, I don't know. That's my issue with that movie, though. I just don't understand where it fits in the timeline either. Like, where does it go? Obviously, it goes before Force Awakens. I mean, before A New Hope. But where? Does it go before Rogue One? Does it go after Rogue One? Like, where does it fit in? Does it go, like, right? Is it supposed to be when the movie ends? Is it like a year before New Hope activities happen? Or, I don't know. That's my only issue, really, with that movie, I guess. Oh, that's the other thing, too, though. Maul's in it. So you're like, okay, Darth Maul was around when Vader was a kid. Then he was part of the Clone Wars. So it's like, okay, he should be like a senior citizen kind of, though. He was an adult man when Vader was a kid. And at the time of episode 4, Vader has 18 to 20-year-old twins now. So Vader should be at least in his 40s at that point. And so if Vader's in his 40s, then we can assume maybe Maul was, let's say, 10 years older than Anakin in Phantom Menace. That would put him at 20, because Anakin was 10. So that means Maul is 50 at this point. But yet, even though he's 50, he's looking much better than he looked during his days of Phantom Menace. So it's like, what? So it's just, I don't know, it's building up a lot of confusion. And then, like, he had Kira was his woman, and it's like, okay, you never hear about Kira other than that movie. And then what happened to Kira? You never hear about her ever again. And then, like, he's going after Leia, but it's like, what's the window between him losing Kira and going after Leia? Is it several years that he's been single? Is it just like, next week, oh, hey, this girl's hot, go after her now? I don't know. I just don't know where it fits in the timeline, that movie. It feels like it's just a movie that they made, and it's not supposed to be part of the continuum at all or something. It's confusing. So that's my only issue with that one. But, yeah. Just overall, though, out of the trilogies, prequel trilogy is very good, even though people hate on it. If you look at it for story and character building and stuff, it's fantastic. Original trilogy is fantastic as well for character building and story. Granted, the parts on Endor are kind of stupid and random and weird, but, not to drop off right now, but I've been sitting in my driveway for like 20 minutes now just talking because I was driving home, and the weird neighbors that are always fighting across from where I park apparently have been sitting in their car the whole time, which is a little bit awkward because I thought I was out here by myself, just talking to myself. Granted, at least this light is on, so people might think I'm on speakerphone talking to somebody, but that's very weird. I thought I was just out here by myself. Like, what the heck? Now they're, like, looking at me like I'm the weirdo. It's like, what have you been doing? At least I'm doing something. I'm just trying to finish up this cast before I go in, so I don't have to pause it or anything. Like, what have you weirdos been up to? That's weird. Whatever. Anyways, so yeah, what was I saying though? I was talking about, so the original trilogy had good character building, and you cared about the characters and stuff, and, but it was just like, man, the sequel trilogy is just not on point at all. It sucked. You don't care about the characters. It didn't build the characters up at all. They started out with so much potential too, and like they just didn't run with any of it. Every character had a starting character arc, and then they just didn't finish any of it. It was like, oh, this character can go direction A, but we'll go B, C, D, E with it. Like, whatever. If they would have stuck with one director and just stuck with one story arc, those movies could have been super awesome. They really could have been. But jumping around like that and having no real direction just ruined it. And I think having people that aren't really fans of Star Wars or have enough knowledge of Star Wars and stuff doesn't help either. Like Kathleen Kennedy, she don't give me that she's a Star Wars fan vibe. She gives me that she's just an executive. She just wants to make money. Oh, I'm going to produce a movie and it's going to make lots of money because it's popular. That means I'll make lots of money. Like, she don't give me the vibe that she's a Star Wars fan. Like, oh man, I'm doing this because Star Wars is awesome. And, it's my whole life. And, So anyways, yeah, sequel trilogy sucked. It's really all there is to it. At least on the positive side, there are some good things coming out. Mandalorian's so far not bad. There's supposed to be a Kenobi show coming out as well, and it's gonna have Ewan McGregor, so it'll still be like Kenobi as we know him. So I'm thinking that could be pretty cool as well. And then there's supposed to be a new trilogy of movies coming out. I mean, I don't know when, but the next trilogy is supposed to be coming out. From what I understand, it's supposed to pick up with Rey from where it left off. So, like, she'll have her cool custom lightsaber. So, at least there's that. So, I don't know. I don't know how good it'll be following Rey now. But hopefully, one, it gets one director. And two, there's more focus. And maybe it could be a cool movie. Maybe we can get a better series of movies now with Rey and just better direction and, do her justice that they should have done this time around, but next time. Also, from what I understand, George Lucas has been hired to come back and give direction because, they couldn't handle it without him. They were quick to get rid of him so they could steal the rights from him, but then they don't know how to make movies right, and everyone complains, and it's like me, and says they suck. So now from what I understand, I don't know if this is true, it's kind of more or less like leaks that I've been hearing, but as long as if it is true, then they've contracted him out to take part in these next movies, which that'll obviously help, having the actual creator putting input in. That sounded weird when you said it faster. Putting input in. But yeah, hopefully the next movies are good. These last ones sucked, and yeah. I feel like I'm just rambling on now, so you know what that means. It's time to end. And with that, I guess, thanks for listening if you made it this far. And I don't know what else to say, so until next time, you already know. Say it, see ya!